Welcome to another episode of Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And on this episode, we're going to be talking a little Houston Texans. Of course, the reigning AFC South champion Houston Texans, as they have unofficially began their title defense with OTAs, of course.
Yeah.
And to talk about the OTAs and a few things going on, I brought on someone that knows a lot about the city of Houston and also the Houston Texans. That would be Kim Y. Davis. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Mike? You're right. OTAs today was the media availability. So if I look a little sun-kissed, that's where I spent the first part of my day is outside at OTAs.
Well, there you go. There you go. The sun did you right. The sun did you right. It's okay. But before we get started and talking about the Texans, I do want to, of course, have the get off your chest segment. And in this episode, it seems like I have to do this every year, but it's a public service announcement for all fans of all teams in the NFL. I need you all to understand that these OTAs going on right now, they're voluntary. Okay, again, I'm going to say these OTAs going on right now, they are voluntary, which means a player does not have to be there. Again, a player does not have to be there. So if your favorite player is not at OTAs right now, it doesn't mean you go scorched earth. It doesn't mean you mess around and go to your podcast and talk about, oh my God, he's not there. He might be leaving. He might be traded. No. This means it's voluntary. Now, if it becomes the ones that he's supposed to be there, the player's supposed to be there, then you can talk about it. But right now, understand there's a difference between when someone is mandatorily has to be there and when someone has to volunteer their time. Because you don't know if this person has, something to do with their family, a prior obligation, kids, all those different things. You got to think they're there from July all the way to, well, in some cases, they're all the way to February. In some cases, January. In some cases, December. That's a good bit of time to be sitting around, not to see your family, your friends, or handle business that you need to handle. So I think you may need to kind of back on up. If you're worried about your favorite player being in a voluntary minicamp, I think you need to find yourself a hobby or get yourself a self-care need, a self-care hobby or self-care a routine, I should say. Because this ain't the time to start worrying about that. Volunteer. You got anything you want to add, Kim?
Well, it is voluntary. I probably have a little different take from you on it. It is a part of the job. And although these guys work really hard, their bodies take a lot of, a lot of punishment because football is physical. They do get time off. And so I don't have a whole lot of cry me a river. And I know that's what you're suggesting about them needing time. Because it is work, and football, as you and I both know, it is pretty much now a year-round obligation. So, it's become kind of expected. It seems nowadays that during OTAs that some of the veterans, the seasoned veterans, might not show up. Like Titus Howard here is never. I'm sorry, Laramie Tunzel never shows up to OTAs. But I do think that sometimes to have an expectation that a new guy with the team would show up, right? Because although you're a veteran in the league, this is all new to you. These people, this playbook, and so, I get it. Why people? Because it's not even just fans. It's sometimes people in the media. It doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, he's a diva. And I mentioned that because, as you know, in the offseason, the Texans acquired Stephon Diggs, and so we saw him for the first time today at OTAs. And, while the coaches didn't seem like they were worried about it, I am sure if they had their choice, they'd rather the players be at OTAs and participating than not. So, but it's no reason, as you said, to go scorched earth. It's kind of expected. Now, if there was a rookie that came in and was not at OTAs, I think that would be significant. You know what I mean? Like, you're just trying to get your feet in. You need to be in the building every time they open the doors because anything can happen, and you're trying to make a team, and now a team that's just starting to be established. So yeah, every year at OTAs, we do this. Like last week when we were out there, who's not here? So Joe Mixon's been there. He was, of course, an off-season acquisition. We know Stephon Diggs. And so, Mike, also in Houston, today is our first time even getting a look at Stephon Diggs in a Texans uniform. We didn't get to talk to him. There was no I'm in town, he's in town press conference. And while the general manager tried to like downplay it, like, hey man, it's not like a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. Like we've had no access to him because we had it with Danielle Hunter, we had it with Aziz, we had it with Joe Mixon. So it's what happens, right? When you make this trade. Like the Bills had a press conference about him leaving, and we never did. So I digress. I just, teams are very big on controlling their own narrative. And so I say, let them do what they do.
I hear you. It's to me, the press conference with him leaving, that sounds like a jilted ex-lover. That just really, to me, in my mind, kind of makes me
here's what it sounds like. I mean, when you cover a team and all of the media requests, it's easier to have a press conference than to do 12 or 15 different interviews. So I get it, right? One of the stars of your team, it's like, look, we'll have a media, not really a press conference, we'll have a media availability and knock it out at one time instead of me trying to do 15 plus interviews in the next 2 hours. So it just made more sense to me.
Gotcha. Well, I will say this: even with that, Josh Allen is still going on podcasts and stuff like that, talking about different things with the Bills. So it's I don't know. That's going to be something to watch for me. It's to see how his numbers differ without Stephon Diggs as opposed to having Stephon Diggs. So that would be definitely something to watch for me. But we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills another day when they play against a team from this division. So
right,
we can save them for another day. We want to talk about the champs. That would be the Houston Texans. Now, of course you mentioned new pieces coming in, things like that, trying to kind of get their bearings where they are, get used to a new system. How kind of from what you've seen and some of the pieces, how is it going so far in what you've seen or in terms of the mannerisms and the coaches and things like that?
So, it's OTAs, right? So it's not even mini camp, which mandatory mini camp is next week. But, you just get a sense. So here's a few things that for me that kind of have stood out thus far. Kenyon Green, who was a first round draft pick 2 years ago to play offensive guard, left guard in particular, I think it's fair to say, had a horrible rookie season. Okay. He came back in year 2. He went through camp and he went through, all the stuff in the off season. But at the end of camp, general manager said, hey, it was not a matter of if, but when. Basically, he was going to go on injured reserve, and he didn't play last year. So I was curious to see what does he look like and how does he look? And so he looks kind of chiseled for him, right? He looks like a football player. And I say that with no disrespect, because when we last saw him, like he don't even really look like he want to play football, right? So now he looks like that, So what that says is he's gotten healthy. He's taken his fitness more seriously. And now we're going to see if he can play football, right? Because you got to get the other stuff first before we even get there. I noticed that Dameon Pierce, and I'm mentioning guys who've been with the team. So Dameon had a pretty good rookie season. Last year, he struggled in this system. He came back. He looks like he's even, he did have an injury last year, but he even said it was like he was starting over. This system was a challenge for him, this offensive scheme. And he looks different physically, so we've seen that. CJ Stroud is still very, very accurate, So even though he had a busy off season and hanging around with his friend Micah Parsons, they did the draft show, they went to China, and they did a lot of different things, but he's still been working out. And when you see him, you can tell, right? He's building on year 1. And then you've got some of the new guys. You've got Joe Mixon, who's been there. Joe Mixon, when we see him in person, as opposed to like standing next to Motor, who was Devin Singletary, or Dameon Pierce. You look at him and you go, oh, yeah, he's a ball player, and so you see him getting his feet wet. And today I mentioned Stephon Diggs was there, Danielle Hunter was there. Got to have had a chance to talk to Aziz, who's going to be great in the locker room. and probably going to be a
Mhm.
media favorite, which you probably know. And so
Mhm.
I've just seen them, it looks competitive. Some, you can tell, Houston's hot. And it doesn't take long to tell who's been working and who's in shape, because you can't really fake it in this Houston Heat. So, and Tank Dell, we had the questions about how was Tank going to look. His season ended last year with that broken leg. He had to have surgery. He had rehabbed and was ready to go. Then he had an unfortunate mishap in Florida at a party where he was shot. We had no idea to the degree of the injury of how bad is he hurt. And so the Sunday before OTAs, he tweeted a picture of him working out, running.
Mhm.
And so we've seen him on the field looking like he's building on what he started. So they look pretty good. I mean, but I always temper that with it is OTAs.
It is. The shorts Olympics
It
basically
is a shorts
right now.
Olympics, absolutely.
Now, one guy that I would say that's going to be interesting for you all to learn is Danico Autry. Because the
Yeah.
reason why I say that is this: Danico does not say much at all,
Okay.
if anything. So that's going to be fun to see who gets the most talking out of Danico Autry. That's going to be quite interesting to see. But you mentioned him, C.J. Stroud. Of course, he took the league by storm last year as a rookie, leading the Texans to the playoffs, winning the first round game or the wild card game, losing in the divisional round. You mentioned he's looking accurate and things like that. So I want to ask, is there anything that kind of looks a little different or kind of feels a little different about him going into this camp as opposed to last camp?
Not yet. I mean, probably he's a leader. Like he is like you look up leadership and his picture is sitting next to the word in the dictionary. And so I guess what's different about this year than last year, although he was confident, he comes in knowing this is his team. The guys already know him. He's already built. He already has that equity of trust, and he wears that, and not
Mhm.
from a place of arrogance, but maybe he's got a little bit of that on him, because the guys are still, new guys come in. Joe talked about it today. Nico, who we talked to today, continues to talk about, their leader. And their leader is CJ Stroud. And they bought into it last year. But if you come into the second year and you start there, I think that's going to be a big jump and a big opportunity for CJ. And really the big jump in terms of growth you expect it to be in year two, especially with the continuity, right? A lot of the same players, especially on offense, basically the same coaching staff, the same OC, the head coach, all of those things you're building on. And so by the end of last year, CJ had input into the game plan, and he was given, a lot of freedom because they trusted him. And so they just build on that. So I guess he's becoming more and more of he's becoming a veteran in year two, if you will.
Okay. All right. All right. Now, of course, last year, to the surprise of many, the Texans did win the division. Of course, there were some that thought they would win the division, but I would say not as many as this season think
Right.
they would win the division. So, going into this season, I know that of course, there was a message and a theme more than likely going into last year. What do you kind of sense is kind of the feeling, and is there a theme that maybe D'Amico is actually kind of echoing out there going into this season?
When you say a message and a theme, I mean, I don't know that it's changed for them, right? I think outside the building, there are more expectations, but
Mhm.
inside the building and inside those meeting rooms, the expectations that he has and he talks about, that hadn't changed, right? It may seem more realistic to the rest of us now, right? Because a little bit of a proof from, okay, kind of you call it social proof from what you saw last year, but he's very, very focused on getting a little better each day, right? He talks about that throughout OTAs. He talks about it, especially he'll talk about it in mini camp, but especially once they get to training camp, you know, and there's excitement around, and he's very good at keeping his players kind of even keel and drowning out some of the outside noise. So while there are other expectations, I will tell you that they had expectations. The guys on this team, the coaches on that staff, people in that building on the football side had expectations last year that outside it took us a while to catch up to. And so I don't know that that's different this year. They start the year off with our goal is Super Bowl. What's interesting though today is we were talking to Nico, and of course he just got the new big contract yesterday. And he a couple of times referenced, yeah, I do this because I love it. Like the money doesn't matter. I mean, I want the money, don't get me wrong, but I really love the game and want to win. And my focus is about getting, he said Super Bowl about 3 times in that media availability. And I didn't get a chance. I didn't get to circle back. It's limited. Where I got another question because I would have asked him, what's it like? Because he's been here. This is going into his 4th season. He was on his rookie deal. He was on some pretty bad teams. And then now you're into camp. Yes, you got a new deal, but you're actually out loud talking about, our goal is to get to the Super Bowl. And nobody's laughing like, you sound crazy. You know what I mean? Like it's not a given, but it's not ridiculous for them to have, for somebody on that team to utter the word Super Bowl. That's different, right? That's different.
Yeah, definitely is going to be interesting just to see how things pan out. But of course, you can't have just the veterans, of course, in the OTAs. You do have to have the rookies. We're going to talk about the rookies and more when we come back from this commercial break on Touring the AFC South.
EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash are 2 of the best beard grooming products for men worldwide. They help promote growth, keep your beard moisturized and soft, and enhance your overall upkeep of your facial hair. And with the new promo code MPAFC10, you can get 10% off all these products. Just go to www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. Again, that's www.etsy.com/shop/EBO Beard Butter. And again, the promo code MPAFC10. Again, MPAFC10, where you can get 10% off any products except for beard boxes. So treat your beard better today by going to get these the EBO Beard Butter and EBO Beard Wash.
All right, and we are back on Touring the AFC South with your host Mike Patton and my special guest Kim White Davis. Of course, the next thing that, like I mentioned before the commercial break, that I wanted to talk about was the rookies. And the number 1 rookie on this team that, of course, is 2nd-round draft pick, Kamari Lassiter. He's a cornerback from the University of Georgia. I don't know how much you've been able to see him or if he's been out there, but how is he looking so far to you?
I mean, I got a chance to see him. I got a chance to see him at rookie camp, right? Because you got to see more of him because that was a much smaller. It was just the rookies, and he looks focused. He looks fit, and I know there are a lot of. I've heard other people in the media have some questions like, why'd they go get this guy? He's not super fast. But he is, I guess it's his versatility. We were talking to the defensive coordinator, Mac Burks, today, and that's one of the things he said. He talked about his versatility and being able to maybe play him inside or out. We'll see. But I think there's got to be something about him, right? Beyond just the tape, if you will. D'Amico and Nick and this staff is really big on what they see on game tape. And not so much just the, like, what's your 40 time? What's your this? What's your that? Those things they do it, but they seem to be much more married to tape. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do have someone that actually does like him. It's in the Touring the AFC South inbox. It's the Raphael Haynes says, I like him. So,
okay.
Yeah, I definitely am a fan of his. I like his play. He's aggressive. And honestly, this is just me. When I saw him pick, I honestly could see him starting opening day, to be honest.
Well, I'm going to tell you what Matt Burke said about him today. He says, I would say the versatility is probably the starting point for Kamara. He's got length. So because we were talking about Jeff Okudah, who's got these really long arms. He says Kamari's got length. He's not a small corner. He talks about his lower body. He just talked about his stature and how he's built. And he said, can we move him inside? Can we play him outside? Are there matchups to be like better? That's going to be, depends on how much he can absorb. But he says he's a really smart football player. He grasps things. And up to this point, he's kind of absorbed everything they've thrown at him. So they feel good about it. And he said, I wouldn't call him a length deficient corner because somebody, I guess the question kind of deferred about his size. And he said, it's how much can they learn and know different positions and where they're trying to move him into different spots. So it'll be interesting, but I think that there's a lot of eyes on him. I don't think he lacks any confidence, which is important, especially at that role. We know on the other side that Sting is a corner, right? Clearly he's a guy that starts on the other side of the field. So it's going to be interesting what they do with the secondary. I mean, I'm watching that really closely.
I mean, definitely, in my opinion, this is how I think it's going to go. I do think that either C.J. Henderson or Jeff Okudah, one of those two is not going to make the team. And I do also think that Kamari Lassiter will be the starter. So, I do think he's going to be the starter. I said this after watching Jeff Okudah in his career and C.J. Henderson in his career. Right. And some of the things that I've heard about C.J. Henderson as well, which I'll tell you off air about that. But, yeah, definitely in hearing some of that and then kind of seeing Jeff Okudah, I could see Kamari Lassiter being the starter there. And I think this is kind of just the maturation point of him for him during this offseason to kind of grasp everything, get used to everything. It's going to be like drinking water through a fire hose to start. But as he gets in there and gets his reps, preseason, all those different things, I think he's going to end up being the guy. It's just my thoughts. But
well, you know what? It's going to be interesting because both of those guys, right, Jeff Okudah and C.J. Henderson, they were highly touted. They had some good times. This is like each of them, I think it's their third team. And so D'Amico said it last week. Matt Burks, the defensive coordinator, said it today. The pass doesn't matter. Like whatever went right or wrong for those guys are expectations that you learn the system, you get better. And so he said, but it's all about competition. So they obviously are clear about Sting. He's going to be holding down one of those spots, but they want to they really just wanted to bring in some guys to compete. So I'm with you. I don't expect both those guys to make it. And so the competition is great. So they've got a lot of competition. They've got what was a kid from USC? Was it Bullock that they brought in also? They got guys that they're going to be. That was
the next guy I was going to actually talk about, to be honest.
Kalen Bullock. Yeah.
Kalen Bullock. Yeah. I mean, I like him. I like his length until he's 6'2". He's, a little on the light side, 190 for a safety, but hey, the guy can he made some things happen for USC, albeit sometimes he didn't make the right thing happen, but hey, it happens. But I mean, what do you think, just kind of looking at him as like a long rangy safety back there? I mean, I think he can make some plays. I think, maybe under the tutelage of Jimmy Ward, he could be a guy that can mature and eventually be that starter that they're looking for beside Petrie.
Well, I think it's, all of that's going to be interesting, right? Because Petrie struggled in year 2. He had a I'll say good rookie season on a not so great team. And last year he struggled. In this defense, you're going to have to hit people in the secondary. You're going to have to tackle somebody, right? And that was not a strength for Jalen Petrie. And so perhaps that's something that he's worked on. Because that's necessary in this D'Amico Ryan defense that they run and Matt Burks defense. So they're really, I believe them when they say it's not just coach speak, right? They really wanted some competition at that spot so that they could try to get the best person and see who's going to be able to step up and play corner the way we want it played. And you mentioned Jimmy Ward, who is here. a DB that got history with D'Amico. Was great when he was on the field, made a difference. His leadership, and he had some injury issues, and he's getting toward the end. So I'm keeping my eyes on the secondary. Just let me tell you that for sure.
Okay, well, we'll tell you this: he has a history with D'Amico, but he also has a history with injuries. Those
That's
two
what
are
I
best
said.
friends.
Injuries, yeah.
Those two are best friends.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been that way ever since he was in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so I could see eventually Bullock taking over, but that may happen sooner rather than later if he can't stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, I know that hopefully he can stay healthy early so that he can impart some of that wisdom on these young guys. Because I'm telling you, Mike, especially early, they were very different with him on the field than they were with him not on the field.
Yeah, he definitely is the coach on the field.
Some confidence to them. I think because of the kind of year that Stingley had when he came back, because he also has had some injuries, right? He has not really had an injury-free season since like his freshman year at LSU. And so there's no question that he's super talented, but you said it, it's injuries. Your availability is a huge part of what the expectations are.
Yeah, your best ability is availability.
That's it.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting just to see. Of course, Caleb Bullock is another guy, but one guy that has the most history with CJ Stroud, that would be Kate Stover, the tight end out of Ohio State. So yeah. I kind of wonder, since they do have chemistry from Ohio State, how is that kind of looking there in Houston? Has the chemistry kind of picked up where it left off, or is just him not getting as many reps, or what's?
Well, I mean, I think it's way too early to know, right? Because he didn't throw with him at rookie minicamp because CJ wasn't there, and so we only got to see OTAs last week and today. So it's difficult to really know the answer to that. I didn't really pay attention to them a whole lot at Ohio State, so I don't have anything to really compare it to. I mean, Dalton Schultz is the number one tight end, obviously.
Right.
But I think that that's going to be helpful, more helpful to Stover than it is to CJ because he does have that history with him. And we'll just see. I mean, how he looks. I mean, he caught a couple passes a day. He looks good. It's tough to see a whole lot in OTAs, right? When you're not really hitting people. We have any pads on. But yeah, I think he's got to be excited. He said that when we interviewed him during the draft that he was excited to be able to reconnect with CJ because they did have really good history and chemistry at Ohio State.
Okay. All right. Now, I've mentioned a few rookies or, you've talked about a few players as well. We both have. But what player am I missing that maybe they're thinking a little bit more highly of than what maybe I am or you are? Is there someone out there that I'm missing, perhaps?
No, I think you've pretty much covered it. I'm trying to think of, there was one.
That's the running back one?
The running back. It's the running Jawar. And so I think, one of the things that Joe Mixon talked about is how there's going to be enough for everybody in that room to eat. There's going to be space for everybody, that there's a lot of talent. He talked a little bit about him today and favorably and said, in terms of liking what he sees. So he is, he's one to watch. He's got a strong trunk. He's got, these huge, he looks like he should be able to run through a wall, and so that's one that I'm curious about, kind of keeping your eyes on is him. And I'm just looking at the roster to see if there's anybody else. I think, I think Jahar Jordan is one out of Louisville. But I think you covered the others. You had Bullock is one, obviously from USC, and not that USC had a great defense, but and there's another player that I'm trying to think of, a rookie who changed positions, who changed from offense to defense. And I think I always find that to be kind of interesting because it brings a whole nother perspective. You know,
Mm-hmm.
let me see if I can see who I'm thinking of. Not Nick. It may be Brandon Hill, the safety
Okay.
out of is it Brandon Hill or Jamal? I gotta get it right because one of them played. That's Darius who played it. Yep, I think it's going to be Brandon Hill, who I believe he was a receiver earlier on, and he switched over to the defensive side. Went to Oregon, and he
It's
talked.
Jamal.
It's
It's
Jamal.
Jamal.
It's Jamal. He
Mhm.
talked about that a little bit. How his coaches said like he could have a really like a brighter future. And so when a guy switches, I think it gives him a bit of an advantage because you know so much of what the offensive player is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to see what that looks like,
Gotcha. We have some more comments here as well from Gino Williams. He said Blake Fisher. Although I understand with Blake Fisher, I think Blake Fisher is more of a complimentary or backup piece.
Yeah.
So at this point, that's the only reason I didn't mention him is because I think he's more of a backup at this point than he is an actual starter.
Well,
Not
yeah,
to say he won't be one.
right. So he played at Notre Dame. He played with he played with Patterson, who was
Mm-hmm.
already on the team. They need some guards, right? So that if Kenyon Green can get it together and play well inside, that will be good. I asked Blake when they drafted him, had he played inside, and he's really only played at tackle, but willing to do whatever it takes. Having the history with somebody else, in the room from playing together at Notre Dame, he was just really very excited to be here. I remember him from draft day. So that is one. Gino, that's a good question. I'm curious to see what happens with Blake Fisher as well.
Okay. All right. Well, we do have a game to end the show. It's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. But first, I'm going to let you kind of get your nerves and your bearings together for these questions.
Okay.
All right. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Touring the AFC South.
A shift. A shift is something that happens and changes the dynamics. And that's what happened when Garrett Logistics was born. After 10 years as a sales pro in the logistics world of sporting goods, John Garrett decided to pivot to the world of freight and start a brokerage. So you're saying to yourself, why trust Garrett Logistics? Well, Garrett Logistics helps shippers improve overall workflow, along with increased on-time pickup and delivery percentages. Last-minute loads, multi-drop pickups, and more are part of the services with Garrett Logistics. They're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., all times Central Standard Time. So give them a ring at 615-400-8484. That's 615-400-8484, or you can email them at john@garrettlogistics.co or visit their website at garrettlogistics.co. Garrett Logistics, where the motto is, it's not just freight to us, it's your business.
All right. Well, like we end every show, it's 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. It could be on and from anything. Are you ready?
As ready as I'm going to be.
All right. You had to choose between one or the other, chicken or fish. Which one are you taking?
Fish.
Fish. Okay. Well, I'll take the chicken because, we do hot chicken here in Nashville. So, all right. If you got to pick one stadium that you enjoy more, is Reliant Stadium or Minute Maid Park?
I'm going to go with, and it's NRG Stadium now. I'm going to go with NRG.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just because the part that this, especially from the press area, it's just, you got more room. So
okay.
If as a fan, I would say Minute Maid, but as a working journalist, I'm going to go with NRG.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next one. Okay. You got to pick which actress would you take between Viola Davis and Angela Bassett?
That's so unfair. Man. I'm gonna go, I guess, with Angela Bassett begrudgingly because that's a really unfair question. I want to just note my protest, here. Because Viola Davis is amazing, but I'm gonna go with Angela Bassett.
Okay. All right. I probably got a couple other ones. You're probably going to say the same thing. Okay. You got to choose one Denzel Washington movie: The Book of Eli or The Equalizer. Which one would you take?
I guess The Book of Eli.
The Book of Eli.
Yeah.
Yeah, Book of Eli was good. That one threw me off at the end of that one.
It threw me off at the end too.
Okay. The last one, I'm pretty sure you're going to be mad about. You got to take one artist and you got to throw away the other one's catalog. And I know you're going to tell me that you can't throw away either one of these catalogs. Prince or Michael Jackson?
I knew that was going to be it. I knew it. And you're right. I cannot do that. Throw away. Not just pick one. I got to throw his catalog away?
Yeah, you got to throw the other catalog away.
I don't know, man. Let me think. That's really hard.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's
Prince
tough.
in this heyday with Purple Rain, and you got Michael Jackson in this heyday was Thriller. Woo! Boy,
And so much. I'm gonna just. I guess I'm gonna say Michael Jackson.
All right. All the Prince fans are gonna be mad. They're gonna be saying game blouses, but as they shoot the basketball now. But yeah, that is the fifth question. That is the last question on 5 questions, 2 answers, and 1 choice. You are off the hot seat. We have reached the end of the show. And I want to thank you again, Kim Y. Davis, for coming on and talking about the Houston Texans. Of course, if you haven't already, check out Chalk Talk with Kim Y. Davis as she gives you any and everything Houston sports, not only the Texans, the Rockets, the Astros, and also pay attention because she does throw some special guests in there for a little more razzle dazzle as well. So, yeah, definitely, Kim, the floor is yours if you want to tell everyone they can find you on social media and any other things you have going on.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm always glad when you invite me. I know you try to have me on. My schedule has just been crazy. So thank you for being flexible and still wanting to have me, be a part of your show. Got to get you back on Chalk Talk too. If you follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Kim Y. Davis. And you'll see what I have going on Instagram. It's Kim Y. Davis Media. So I do Chalk Talk every week. Mike, I am working on the book. I hope to finish it really, really soon.
Okay. All right.
When that is done. It's been I've started it over and changed the title and the focus a gazillion times. And so I finally just said, okay, what it needs to be is finished. Okay. And so that's so I am working on that, and I'm about to launch a line of some t-shirts because people always say we don't have anything that says Chalk Talk. So I'm working on that. I'll let you know when I launch that, hopefully in the next month. I'm going to have some merch that people can get that says Chalk Talk and some kind of cool stuff. So that's what I got going on, and all about these Texans and these Astros right now while the Rockets are getting ready for the draft. But that's what I'm doing, and following tennis. The Open is going on, so tennis was my sport, and unfortunately, Naomi Osaka lost last night in the 3-set match yesterday, but Coco Gauff is still in it, and some other Americans. So if you like tennis, take a look and take a gander over at what's happening at the U.S. Open. At the French Open.
That's all right. That's all right. Hey, we still there watching. But I did have to mention this, though. Of course, I do have merchandise as well for those that don't know. Of course, Touring the AFC South merchandise. Of course, I got it in all different colors. Especially, I do have it in Texans colors, too. So, yeah. So, have all that stuff ready for everyone. Of course, you see it flashing at the bottom of the screen if you're watching. Cool. If you're not watching, it's at touringtheafcsouth.creator-spring.com. That's touringtheafcsouth.creator-spring.com. And, of course, you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Yeah, I'm paying homage to Prince right there. But you can find me on the artist formerly known as Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82. That's MikePatton82 on the artist formerly known as Twitter. Of course, you can find me on Instagram and Threads at that's THA, not THE, _general_MP. And of course, you can find Touring the AFC South on all listening platforms, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it, we are there. We're also on YouTube. I want to thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. I almost said AFC East. I don't know why I almost said AFC East, but thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Touring the AFC South. We're out. Peace.